Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Operation Ace Open. My name is Hunted here with Silent Echo, and I am so very excited to be with you all this evening. It's been quite a tournament in the making. We're finally here. We've got 8 teams, and Silent Echo, I'm hoping you're just as ready to go for this one as I am.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, I was looking at the player streams. We had a lot of them streaming their group stages through. I caught a little bit of Splinter Squadrons, caught a little bit of Grey Squadron. And I mean, it just seemed like everyone was having such a good time, but it was very serious, you know? Like, I think to some extent, these players are starting to recognize what it means to take the fun out of the moment and make it about the end of the match, you know? And
Right.
that's just something that a lot of these players probably have never experienced before.
Well, let's take a quick look at the format here, and we'll see why exactly they're taking things so seriously. As you can see on your screen, it's a single elimination bracket, your standard fleet battle, and of course, we've got the top 8 teams that we're going to be showing you here live on the broadcast. We had some group stage matchups earlier on today that, again, as Silent Echo alluded to there, were streamed by some of the teams. But yeah, so interesting part about this tournament, kind of taking some cues from the last Operation Ace here, Silent Echo, is the bounties, some cool prizes for individual player accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. In a game like this, there's a lot of different roles, there's a lot of different things that need to be done. At different stages in the game, you need to be focusing on doing different things. You need to cap damage, you need to farm your AI, you need to farm as much as you can in terms of the resources so that you're ready for when that morale flip happens. And the bounties are a really good way for us to recognize that while a great player might not be able to carry an entire team to victory, they still deserve a lot of recognition, even if things maybe don't go their way in the end.
Well, with those bounties also comes the overall prize pool. It's looking pretty good. First place, $500 on the line there for the top squad today. Second place will walk away with a cool $300 as well. Not too bad for an evening of Squadrons here. And an interesting little tidbit to add to everything is that Medal of Valor. It's going to be kind of decided. We'll talk a little bit more about it as the broadcast goes on, but it's going to be kind of us as casters coming together, who we thought was kind of like the MVP on the day. We're going to get chat influence as well. If you like a specific player, make sure you let us know in chat as well. And, again, it's just another way that these players can get recognized for their skill in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with the Medal of Valor, I mean, it really gives every player that little bit of extra they need maybe to push to that 105%, that 110% that's going to be able to clinch the victory in what I'm expecting to be some very close games based on what I saw earlier.
Well, let's take a quick look at the bracket before we get things rocking and rolling. Here's the top 8 teams. Grey Squadron and Firaxa, they will meet each other in that top side. Should be a pretty good matchup. You and I will be covering Shrapnel Squadron and Splinter. Unfortunately, we can't get to all of the quarterfinal games, so we're going to be covering that one. Of course, we'll cover the semis and grands when we get there. But Aces 5 doing battle between the Devastator Squadron and Akbar's Angels there, Silent Echo.
Yeah, the Aces, they seem to have like 15 teams at this point. You know, the game's hardly been out. They've got more teams than there are other teams. But it's nice to see that there's such a strong community starting to form around this esport. You know, this is a game that I've been waiting for 20 years.
Yeah,
you know, that's the kind of scope that we're looking at. You know, people remember playing X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. We're talking about games in the 90s. And now we have Squadrons, which is just a whole new land of opportunity.
And, we're so happy to bring this to you again with everything that has happened through the esports scene since the launch of the game. This is one of the most anticipated tournaments, at least for me. And I'm very much looking forward to getting things started. But with that, we've got Shrapnel Squadron and Splinter Squadron up first here. Out of Group A, Shrapnel Squadron comes out second place. Splinter third from, Group B is Shrapnel at number 2. Group A was Splinter at number 3.
Yeah, and I think that the pools, they seemed like there was maybe a little bit more strength in one of the pools, which is often the case with how these things always pan out. But seeing who's made it to the bracket, we had some tiebreaker situations. There was all kinds of excitement in the group stages, and now we're here, Shrapnel versus Splinter. in a best of 3. I'm just really excited to see what they go for in terms of maps. I want to see what kind of lineups they're thinking. You know, teams are very intent on hard countering the other teams that they see. They've been out there, they've been doing their homework, they've been checking out other people's streams, and they've been trying to figure out, you know, what is it that people like to run. And of course, there's been a lot of scrims going on as well since custom matches were introduced to the game, and that's been, I think, an opportunity to maybe like mislead a little bit, but also try things out in a much more competitive environment where you can guarantee that your opponent is trying the hardest.
I mean, and with maps too, while the teams are taking care of map bans right now, we'll get that information to you when we've got it. You know, the uniqueness of the individual maps in Squadrons plays a large role, I think, in a lot of meta discussions and how teams like to approach different things. Is there anything that you specifically, as a caster or a player, you know, any map that you want to see today that you hope at least that we get to see at least once or twice?
Yeah, I think Yavin's always a great shout. You know, like we anchor the Star Wars timeline by the Battle of Yavin. You know, everything is after the Battle of Yavin or before the Battle of Yavin, and that's how the Star Wars timeline works. You know, and Yavin is just that wide open space. You know, it feels very pure to me. You know, it's almost more like a sports field. You know, there isn't a whole load of obstacles or anything. There's just some sidelines and some goalkeepers. You know, the cap ships, and off you go and do the best that you can. So I think that we'll see some of the purest dogfighting maybe on that map. But the other maps lead to so much opportunity for being able to duck under rocks, around terrain. You know, knowing these maps is really, really important. Knowing your routes into the capital ships to be able to get that little bit of extra time where you're off sensors. Making sure that you've got that that sort of RV point where you're going to meet up with your support and grab your squadron mask before you go in to get that last bit of HP down on the capital ship. And there's just so much opportunity, and I mean, I'm just really excited to be here talking about it.
You know, and just from my previous experience in the scene, I remember you know, one of the other bigger tournaments that happened before we kind of had custom matches and everything really got set up with the Legion stuff. I mean, map 3, I believe, in the grand finals came down to Yavin. I think they actually played Yavin twice, which, you know, was random back then because you just kind of queued and hoped you got each other.
Yeah, right.
But
everyone count down from 5.
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
Well, you know, I believe they played Yavin twice, and I totally agree with you. I know that the players might not necessarily be as thrilled about it as you and I may be to watch it. But it is, you know, there is no place to hide. It's you and your opponents, and, you know, it's either win or lose there. But I mean, again, with these maps, and we don't know exactly what we're going to see today, there's a whole lot of differences that, you know, we'll get into the little intricacies of the maps when we get there. But the other big kind of talking point here today, outside of course, the teams, and really this is the first place that they can prove who's kind of the best right now, at least of the teams that are signed up here. The other talking point is this is the first big tournament with the Defender in the lineup, and the Defender has been a ship that a lot of teams have started incorporating.
Yeah, it has some massive benefits over the other ships in the game. One specific one is with a mechanic called dead drifting, which I'm not sure if everyone will be aware of at this point. I mean, most people aren't, let's be honest. I certainly haven't managed to do it myself yet, but the thing about dead drifting is that it allows you to drift for much longer with still control over where you're shooting, which is obviously a huge deal because you can be traveling away from your opponent while shooting at them. But the Defender allows you to recharge that boost while you're drifting in a way that the other ships just don't allow you to do. So you can really start chaining that, and it makes them very squirrely and really can make it difficult to take one out.
Yeah, and we're going to see a whole lot of that when we're talking about drifting. If you're new to Squadrons, or maybe you haven't played a ton of this game, get ready for some fancy flying from pretty much everybody we're going to be watching today, and how they utilize the drifting. And you know, this is a little bit different from dogfighting, which we've seen here and there throughout the scene. Obviously, with fleet battles, it's more objective-based, right? You know, it's less about farming kills, more about farming objectives. But still, a lot of that comes into play, and we have some of the best pilots on display today throughout these teams. You know, Skull and Gray Squadron going 6-0 through groups. I would not be surprised if we see them matching up in the grand final.
Yeah, I think Splinter Squadron though here. I mean, I saw some of their matches. I saw their match against Grey Squadron as well, and I mean that was such a close game. Like it was unbelievably close, and I think that that's one of the things that I've heard a lot from quite a lot of the teams is that when they've been scrimming, there's been a lot of close matches, and I'm not sure whether that's completely that everybody's on the same level at the moment, but just how everybody's still learning the different contexts to make these decisions in. You know, you make a decision at one point in the match and that's a good idea, but maybe in the next match, doing it 5 minutes later is not. So we're still figuring out what meta means for Squadrons, but I think today what it means is we're going to see a lot of defenders and then we're going to see a lot of iron cannons trying to take out those defenders.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things about that defender too, and specifically in those kind of dogfighting situations, is that those ion blasters, I believe they have the rockets, right? The ion rockets, I believe, is kind of the main defensive focal point for the defender, if you will, and it can be quite devastating when the defender has some of the best turn radius in the game, is able to lock on to you quite quickly with those ion, and we'll see how teams deal with it. I'm sure we're going to see A-wings and interceptors galore. These pilots certainly love to fly them, but the bomber meta was kind of the thing before, the latest update. I'm wondering where the bombers kind of fill in here today.
Well, I've seen a lot of Y-wings out today. A lot of Y-wings doing a lot of work. I think that the extra hull that they have to be able to stack up a little bit better against some of these Empire ships that are living a little bit longer now is making a big difference. And of course the fact that they are, if they can get a line on a defender, they can take the shields off that thing very quickly, and if a defender loses its shields, it's gone. It's paste. There's nothing underneath the shields. You know, it's like when you buy a house and you peel off the wallpaper and there's just no wall underneath. You're like, wait a minute, actually try and hang up a photo and it goes out the other side of the wall. It's the defender is literally paper mache, but it's so quick to recharge those shields. And you got to be dancing your fingers all over that power management, even more than you do in other ships, if you want to stay alive and be successful in it. So I think that people are liking the Defender because they stay alive for a long time in it. But I don't know how effective it actually is. Like, staying alive is great, obviously. You need to be doing things while you're alive.
Well, I think, honestly, and we've talked about this on previous broadcasts, but I truly believe that that the support players today are going to be kind of I would imagine they're going to be unsung heroes, but at the same time, we are probably going to see.
Oh, we're going to sing their praises. Are you kidding? Like, when I see those squadron masks go out, I'm calling it. Well, you can't ignore that kind of thing. You know, you're talking about like 20,000 capital ship damage if you get a good squadron mask off. It's not a small amount. It's huge.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's the key to those support players. We've got, again, quite a number of very skilled support players here today, getting ready to go, and we apologize for the delay on this matchup. We've got, I think, some player issues happening right now. We're getting those sorted out. We'll get this game underway in just a moment. But again, with how things have gone throughout today, both teams are sitting pretty good coming out of the group stage, right? I mean, obviously you needed to make top 4 in your group, and it's not an easy path. But both Shrapnel Squadron and Splinter Squadron, honestly, I could see them making a pretty deep run here, but, unfortunately, they're playing against each other right now.
Yeah, that's something that I've heard as well, is that, it's a bit of a shame that this match is happening so soon in the bracket, but ultimately that's how it pans out sometimes, and that could be because of other teams losing or winning when maybe they would have been expected to go in a different direction, and obviously now we're here looking at these guys, and I mean, these map picks, like, we're getting that Yavin that I wanted, and I love it. That's what I want to see. A little bit of Foster Haven in the back end, but starting it off with Sisubo. What do you think of Sisubo?
I'm not surprised to see this map picked. It's kind of to me, it feels like a relatively balanced matchup, especially because a lot of these teams, actually, to be 100% honest, a lot of teams wanted New Republic before the update, and now that people are starting to fly Defender a bit more, I think it's actually kind of switched a little bit to the Empire side. So we might see teams that are choosing side over map, and then we get kind of those New Republic heavy maps with teams that are then playing New Republic. But to me, Sisubo, at least in the fleet battles, kind of feels a bit balanced. There is a decent amount of cover, but there's not a ton where you can group your players up, and like you were talking about, a good support player can mask the entire squadron and push through. I think Sisubo kind of limits that a little bit, and the Avid, of course, will certainly do that with when we get into that. But what I'm interested in is the fact that Fostar Haven is going to be the tiebreaker. That'll be a lot of fun if we can get all the way there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sisabu approaches me as a map where it's the feel it out map, you know, like we're going to see how these guys are doing right now, and then, you know, like it's a good map for reacting, I think, to changes in tactics. You know, the commute times aren't intense. I think that it's going to be a lot of fun to watch things play out and see. I mean, it's the Raider flips that I'm looking for, you know, like which teams are leaving the Raider a little bit longer so that they can get that, you know, safer, more guaranteed morale flip later on, rather than just killing it as soon as you can, which seems like it would be the best thing to do, but I'm assured is not.
Well, here's the players on your screen there. Brunus doing a little bit of flexing to start the game, and I'd love to see that, of course. You know, with the timer counting down, teams getting ready, you know, sorting out their loadouts and things like that for their assorted ships. You know, when you come into a game like this, you know, obviously the first kind of minute or so is going to be that sort of dogfighty situation, right? I wonder if we see any kind of quick fire tactics just to win that first battle, or if it's more of just going to be kind of sustained offense from both of these teams.
I would definitely expect to see, you know, maybe just like an early try to get an AI wipe as soon as possible, and then like let that little bit of momentum just carry you forwards. But I really don't know, you know, like maybe they're just going to go conservative, you know, stay solid, regroup, make sure that they're not overextending, and try to take their time and build the moment when they feel like they can push. What I've been hearing on the player streams today is that the first attack is so important. If you don't get enough on that first attack, that's it. You're just going to be in a defensive situation. And the other thing that I found out is that most of these teams do not have enough experience in these defensive situations, because in ladder, those defensive situations are not challenging for these players.
Well, certainly. We'll see how they handle it as we are underway with map number 1 in and this should be a pretty good battle here. To start things off, we are on board with Shrapnel Squadron. There's a nice little graphic. Shrapnel Squadron in the Empire ship this time around. Splinter Squadron on the left side of the screen in the New Republic ship. Does look like fire going to get traded here. Any ship selection that you might be surprised with here to start things off?
I think this is pretty solid. You know, we've got the bomber there, making sure we've got those multi-fire missiles, we've got the AI wave, you know, I'm seeing the U-wing at the back on North, and nothing surprising. Maybe a little surprised to see that we don't have a U-wing sort of trying to deal with any defenders. We don't actually have any right now. Just one Senpai has one out at the moment. And so far, I mean, it seems like long start for the Rebellion.
I'm certainly not surprised to see Scalpwalker and Jareen both in those A-wings.
Oh yeah,
doing a great job.
Yeah, that's early.
Well, they're able to push themselves over the edge, and will line up this attack. And it looks like Brunus, he is going to be pushing in a little bit here. He might be caught off guard. I think his team is regrouping before any kind of push, but he's going to get away. He's going to utilize those overcharged shields and maybe just a little bit of scouting. I'm not entirely sure what the game plan is going to be here for Splinter, but as you said, this first attack is going to be important. Anybody who hasn't watched Squadrons, make sure you keep an eye on those little assault cruiser bubbles. That'll show you the health of the cruisers, the shields there, as well, as those are going to be important targets to pick off first, because obviously it opens up the primary objective, which is that big ship in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Corvette and your sort of power ship, like, you know, they're like towers in a MOBA. You have a lot of similarity between Squadrons, the way the fleet battles play out, and MOBA. And then we have this kind of dogfighting moment. Oh, we see this A-wing now just trying to get out of here as fast as it can. But, very low health, very low shield. But that's kind of where the instants want to be a lot of the time. You know, they're relying on mobility.
That was actually the first frag we've seen. Brunus going down there. Not the first death for the New Republic, but the first kill goes over to Ando Senpai there for the Shrapnel Squadron. So trying to play some defense here. They're going to stick with this comp that they kind of started things out with. But some decent damage being done. We're on board with one of those TIE fighters. Interesting to see a TIE fighter. I didn't think we'd see too
Fenkar
many
started
of
off
them
in a
today.
Y-wing. I think Fenkar started off in a Y-wing and has since switched to an X-wing, but I found that my short-term memory is already gone because there's so much information going on in this game.
Oh, yeah.
You know, look at these shots that we get as well. It's so cinematic. Beautiful. I know somebody who was absolutely obsessed with Y-wing, U-wing, sorry, because of the X-wing tabletop game, and I'm just really glad that now I can do it.
There's the look at the X-wing getting taken down. Or, I'm sorry, not the X-wing, the TIE fighter. They're getting shut down.
TIE fighter, yeah, completely different. Yeah, the difference between them, you know, is the TIE fighter, its wings are sideways. That's what I wanted to remember it. But man, do you think they'll ever add an atmospheric map to this? We'll start seeing those solar panels be a real problem.
You know, I think there is a whole lot of potential for additional, you know, just additional gameplay elements, things like that. I would not be surprised.
I mean, I'd be happy to just see more Star Wars spaces.
That's true. That is very true. But right now, we are still locked into this battle between Splinter and Shrapnel. Splinter still on the attack. They've done a decent amount of damage to, I believe that's all of the shields gone on that sea cruiser. Or I'm sorry, the sea frigate, I should say. Although they kind of changed letters. That's a little confusing when we change sides. But the one of them has taken full shield and some hull damage. And this is a pretty good attack.
Yeah, that hull's going down.
The fact that they've kept themselves on the attack this long as well. Here's another opportunity to take down the support player. Does have to pull back. Does Jareen going to try to regroup, I believe, with his teammates as, you know, it looks like a push coming out from the Shrapnel Squadron trying to take players down. They're actually pushing very far forward. I'm a little bit surprised at how far forward Shrapnel's willing to dive for this, but if they can find a couple of kills, they'll turn this battle around.
Yeah, that's the real thing, is that the player kills are a huge deal, but that's it! It flipped for Republic. They're pushing onto the attack now. They're going to start moving forward. And, I mean, that Nebulon B looks like it's in real trouble right now, but maybe that was worth the cost.
Oh, it's flipped around, and now the Shrapnel Squadron going to push and try to stay on the attack. Oh, a lot of respawns going to be coming out now, and see, that's the thing, is that if you can get that flip and then respawn immediately afterwards, right? I mean, it's not certainly an easy thing to do, but it can give you kind of that opportunity to regroup and reload, as some shots going to be raining down here. Splinter Squadron wanting to start pushing forward as well, and this is quite interesting how back and forth this has been. But the utilization so far of these lighter ships, I don't think I'm surprised, but we really, again, haven't seen the Defender. We've got one out on the field, but it doesn't feel like the Defender's really done a whole lot of work so far.
Well, that's what I've been saying, you know, like, it's all great to fly, but I question what I've achieved other than not dying. Now, that can be a lot in itself, you know. If you're able to tie up an interceptor so that it's just chasing you for ages, that means that interceptor isn't doing other things, and that's then worthwhile. But if you're just kind of staying alive long enough until their attention wanes and then ducking back and refilling and you come back out, you know, what I found in fleet battles is that it doesn't really matter, you know. If you get 18 kills and 10 deaths, that's fine, but if you've got 3 specific damage, that's why you lost, you know? So it's being able to adapt to situations, taking advantage of the fact that you can bounce, you can jump back into your cruiser at the back and change ship and come back out fully healthed. You can even just stay in the same ship. It's a quick way to sort of, you know, change your loadout, whatever you need to do. And we see a lot of the time players jumping out of offense. You know, if a couple of people go down, they'd rather have 2 people get back and bounce than take the morale hit of those 2 people dying on the attack.
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because looking at the tactical map, all of Splinter Squadron went back at the same time. They've gotten things reloaded, and here comes the assault on this final cruiser. Looking to push, get that down. There it goes, and now the Star Destroyer is exposed, and this has been a Splinter Squadron game through and through. You look at the scoreboard, only 2 kills in total over to the Shrapnel Squadron. Brandon and Ando Senpai with 1 apiece. And now with the Star Destroyer getting exposed as it is, you know, it's going to be important that you burn these attacking ships down. As we watch Benkar looking for that shield generator, does a decent amount of damage, doesn't pick it quite up. But if he can take out the shield generator in this life, this is going to be huge. He's got through the shield, but, you know, taking a lot of fire right now.
Yeah, well, being able to duck under the ship is one of the reasons the smaller ships can be really good for taking out that early shield generator damage. You know, you don't have to fire through the ship. You see, just ducking underneath the dome of deflectors to hit that hull damage in is enough. And if you get those shield generators down, that's the most important thing. That's going to bring everything else and make it much easier. You do not want to go for the other one.
And that's both shields down. They get both of them, but the attack will flip over now. A Shrapnel Squadron going to have an opportunity to respond, but you look at the frigate damage here, Silent Echo, and I've got to imagine this next attack has to see the deletion of both C and D on our screens right now.
Yeah, they've got one chance. I mean, if I was Shrapnel, I'd be wondering what on earth they could do right now. They're going to have to make the most out of this raider, try and keep it alive as long as possible so that it can push forward for them, clean up some of those AI ships, allow them to sort of use it as a rallying point. But I think it's going to go down real quick as we take a look at the wide angle here. The Nebulon B seems plenty safe, even with the radar coming right towards it. Doesn't seem like there's a huge amount going on. But man, can those raiders move? Look at it go.
And for anybody who is new to Squadrons or doesn't quite have a grasp on fleet battles, those raiders and on the other side, the frigates are spawned when the assault kind of flips sides, right? So you get a ship, it doesn't have a ton of health and it kind of flies directly into enemy space, right? But, you know, it kind of gives you a little bit of extra cover, allows you to advance with an objective point to give yourself something to rally behind. But, you know, it does fall down quite quickly. They do manage to take out one of the defending frigates. This final one down to half hull health, but we're on board here with Scalp as he tries to pick off some of these final players. Will eventually flip it back on over to attack, and this could very well do it for map 1 here, Silent Echo.
Yeah, Scalp is fantastic at this one. He really is. He is able to lock up a player, get on their tail, and stay on their tail, and prevent them from doing what they do. And what I've noticed is that he's so good at timing when he engages. Right? He can have them in his sights for a little bit, but he'll wait until they lock onto a course of action because players tend not to maneuver as much. You know, they're busy shooting something, and they want to try and keep their reticle on target. Well, a lot of the time that means you're tunnel visioning, and he excels in that blind spot.
Those A-wings that Scalp and Dream.
Those A-wings.
I mean, it's kind of their it's their calling card to fly in and out of those blind spots as the tractor beam does go down there. The powering system, or the power systems going to open up some more hull damage.
It's looking like this one's going to be a real quick one, and Shrapnel may be wondering what they've gotten themselves into here.
Well, with it being map 1, and again, this is Sisebo, right? I mean, it is a relatively similar map to Yavin. I'm a bit concerned. I'm not sure which side will be which, but it does certainly look like Splinter Squadron going to take map 1. The Star Destroyer on its last legs here as we get a cinematic view. Scalp trying to find that remaining damage.
Yeah, even if you're in an interceptor, like at these points in the game, you just put everything on the capital ship. You know, that's what's going to get you the win. You can kill as many players as you like, but if that Star Destroyer doesn't die, then there's no point. So, taking these opportunities right at the end here, you know, even maybe going for a ram if you feel like you're going to die anyway. Why not turn that death into damage? And then we see that Star Destroyer breaking up, and wow. It's that definitely a solid introduction to the stream here.
Well, yeah, well played from Splinter Squadron. Take a 1-0 lead now heading into map number 2, which again will be on Yavin. Here's the scoreboard. 5 kills for both Scalp and Jareen, totaling 10. And there was some good fight towards the end there, but most of those kills again kind of came in that final moment, right when it was kind of the battle was already a bit decided. And again, this is our first opportunity getting to see the Defender on the big screen right here. I don't know if it was worth taking an interceptor off the field for it.
Yeah, I don't know whether it necessarily fulfills the same role as an interceptor. I honestly think of it more as a tank. It's something to take the attention. It's squirrely. You can't get after it. Trying to staying behind that thing is almost impossible. It's almost worth just hitting your boost for as much as you can, and then just 180 and wait for it to finish spinning and then shoot it. It's one of those ships that can really change the angle of the battlefield very quickly if you're trying to kill it. But the thing is that in fleet battles, you don't need to kill it. It can stay alive for as long as it wants. If it's not doing anything, there's no threat, it's not achieving the win condition, it's not part of the strategic element of the game at that point. So I think that Shrapnel could have done a lot more there to recognize that something wasn't working and switch it up, because it did look like they were just running one of every ship. And that's maybe not, maybe we at some points, you want more interceptors perhaps to push forward, and maybe something that's going to put on more cap ship damage. Maybe there's a lot of different options that you can go for, but also, Splinter are just extremely good at flying.
Well, let's take another quick look at what maps we've got coming up here. We did just see Sisabu getting taken down by Shrapnel Squadron, and now Splinter Squad going to be playing the Empire side on Yavin. So we're going to have a swappage of sides, and we'll see if the Defender makes an appearance for Splinter on Yavin Prime. And again, Yavin, a map that pretty much gives you zero cover, so gonna be a lot of fun to watch these teams do battle. Can't wait to get this one underway. But a 1-0 lead and a relatively convincing win. Now that we see a New Republic half here for the team that's trailing, maybe that could give them a bit of a spark to try to come back and force a game 3.
Yeah, I think that Yavin, it's a very wide open space, so it really does help those who are good at maneuvering. I think that to some extent cover is a crutch for those who are not as good, not as skilled pilots, because the thing is, right, it's like, it sounds like it's harder to navigate around obstacles and things like that, but it's very easy to break line of sight, which is actually the point of whatever you're doing, usually is to break line of sight so they can't shoot you anymore. Well, in Yavin, that's not an option, so you have to rely on your skill as a pilot, like juke them, mislead them, make them think you're going to go do one thing and then do the opposite. The best thing to do is probably the third best thing to do, because the idea is to be as unpredictable as possible, and that's, I think, whichever team can manage that more successfully is gonna do very well. And looking at what just happened there, it's not looking great for Shrapnel on that front. And the Defender, I don't think I really had any situations where it really shined. I think on Yavin, it has a bit more opportunity to do well. But this time it's in the hands of the team that just won, so who knows? At least you can't cloud skim as much in Imperials, in Republic ships, There's that as well, so that... I don't know. It's going to be a bit one-sided, I think, on this one, Hunted.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how these teams decide to play this one out. And one of the arguments too that's made towards kind of the A-wing over the interceptor, right, is the cockpit space in general, especially as some of these players do play VR. And I know that there are some pilots who much prefer the A-wing because you can just see a little bit more. You have a little bit more of a kind of, obviously field of view, but more awareness of what you're doing, where you are, where everybody else is. And the Defender can also kind of help with that as well, with how quickly it can, obviously maneuver itself. So we'll see if Scalp or Jareen decide to switch over to a Defender. I know that we've been kind of talking the Defender to death.
I'll be surprised if Scalp isn't in one, then. I'll be surprised if he's not in one, because it just benefits the high pilot skill, so much. But you have to be achieving things. This is the point that I keep making. You can fly around as much as you want, but you have to be doing stuff that helps. Well,
here is Splinter Squadron on your screen right now in that Republic garb. So they're up 1-0. As you can see, Shrapnel Squadron have to try to make a comeback here on Yavin. It's not going to be easy, but we'll see what they can pull out in these New Republic ships. And again, while we are getting this ready and able to go through here, this first battle has to be won, in my opinion, by Shrapnel. They need to get on the offensive early.
Yeah, they you know, I'm tempted to say, yeah, they need to get that first attack as soon as possible, but I think it's more important that they control the morale game. I think that that's the thing that really sets Splinter Squadron aside compared to the other teams that I've been looking at, you know. I think that their awareness of what they need in specific situations is just that little bit higher, and I think that that just speaks of like the amount of time that they've spent playing the game, because it's not been out for a very long time, people. Why do we have 500 hours doing things in this game? I didn't feel like there'd been 500 hours since the game came out, but apparently that's where we're at now. So it really reminds me, you know, you and I, we both know Rocket League very well, and the moment that we're in right now really reminds me of like September after Rocket League came out. It just seems like we're finding new mechanics every day. There's new elements of the system that we can exploit and use. The way dead drifting can throw off people's aim, for example, you know, that's a very recent discovery, and we're talking about a very short lifespan of the game as it is. So there's a lot of nuance here, and I think that a couple of days of extra research can really make the difference for some of these players.
Well, here we go. Yavin, map number 2. It is Splinter Squadron trying to close things out into games. They're in that Republic, the Republic ships right now. I'm sorry, the Empire ships right now. Republic side under the gun. We'll see how things can shake out here as we're on board with Fenkar to start things out, looking for some of those AI ships to get that morale, and there it is. Already over to Splinter Squadron, and it didn't really take too many frags on the player ships. It's just a lot of AI kills. I think they had 2, maybe 3 kills, which, you know, again does swing that morale quite in their favor. And this is the danger zone right now. If your Shrapnel Squadron can't make a mistake, have to turn this around. Do not let Splinter get a lot of damage early on.
Yeah, if they lose, you know, a tower ship at this point, that's gonna be it. I think they need to make sure that they keep as much potential capital ship damage off the table as possible. That means aiming in front of fighters before they launch torpedoes, so that you hit the torpedoes. You know, little nuances like that, trying to help the game figure out what it is that you want to do. Because if you're aiming at a ship, right, the lasers auto converge on that ship, because the lasers are converging, right? They need to know how far the ship is away. The game does a lot of that sort of computing power for you. It's not something that you control. What that means is that dead drifting can throw it off, and what it also means is that it's really easy to hit torpedoes right after they launch, because you already have the lasers dialed into that distance. You can just lead the target a little bit more, and you shoot the exploding thing that's coming out. But doing that, obviously, way easier said than done.
We're here with Scalp. He's got Ando in his sights. On over now to Fenkar as he looks to assault. Not sure which frigate this one is, but he's got the he's got his own ship in the way to contend with. Gonna put on a decent amount of damage here with this defender, and we've got a defender, 2 interceptor, fighter support lineup here for Splinter Squadron. No bombers, which I guess is not necessarily a surprise.
They started off with a bomber. They got the initial AI farm out of the way, and then they swapped it out for a defender, which Fenkar's driving. So it really is just shows, you know, the teams that hit more often, those teams that are doing better. So it's just like Overwatch, you have to know what the situation requires.
We get one of the frigates. The second one is exposed. Still, they battle for morale. It's closing in for Shrapnel Squadron. They need a couple more frags, but Fenkar still sitting here doing a lot of damage. I do want to see who's got the most cap ship damage. Yeah, it's Fenkar by a whole lot here. He's done 32,000, and the rest of his team combined just hit 10,000.
So watch what Fenkar's doing here. He is dead drifting so that he can stay shooting at the ship. If you look at the lines on the screen that are flying past, they were going backwards while he was doing that, which means he's traveling backwards. And the way the defender can do that while still being able to use the APS to recharge engines, be able to shift power back into engines as well to generate some boost, just very, very good at doing things like that, just gliding around and being very hard to hit.
As you can see, Brandon's, yeah,
as Brandon's finding out, yeah.
trying to take down Fenkar, who has, again, done so much damage. They do eventually flip the morale over, but not before losing both of those frigates. So, gonna have to be a pretty good attack. Yeah, it's gonna have to be a good counterattack here from the Republic side. They're gonna potentially switch off the bomber. They look to, yeah, they're all gonna grab up here. Yeah, it looks like they are gonna switch off at least one of the bombers. Yeah, both bombers going away. So we'll see. Let's see what they got.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to survive a long time in the bombers on Yavin, especially when you're pushing into attack. Because, like, what are you hiding behind? You know, you're slow, you can't move, and you're butt ugly, as they used to say about the Y-Wing. So I think that it's a real problem to try and risk taking one of those in. You know, Squadron Mask is only going to do so much, and here the speed are what counts right now, being able to get into action and out of action fast. You don't want to take those morale hits with that.
Bomber for Fenkar now, opting. It's so funny how we're seeing the defender used on attack and then immediately swapped out when playing defense.
Yeah, keeping that AI back is really important. You know, it is very much like a mobile. I can't stress the similarities as much as that, because when you kill a player, like, that's impactful. But if you kill all the players and never deal with the AI, then the AI will just kill you. So that is something that can happen, you know. And Yavin is one of the best maps for that. The cruisers, they get right up next to each other. You got a Star Destroyer going up against the MC-75, and they will trade shots while you're trying to attack them, and that's just great. And what we saw there, we just missed it actually. We switched off Fenkar, but he was going back in to swap. So
defender, you know, will make an appearance. Oh, actually, no, he's
back into a tie. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe feeling confident. Or
well, I mean, maybe he just felt like he wasn't doing enough in the defender. You know.
Again, he killed two ships on his own.
He didn't kill two ships on his own.
Look at the scoreboard, man. He's got 40,000 damage already in capital ship damage, and you know, maybe the defender, you know, maybe he's just got a different strategy for the MC-75. Of course, it's obviously a much larger ship. You got to target specific spots on it. So
yeah, I think that it's a lot easier to dead drift orbit around something with a lot less cannons.
Yeah.
You know,
right? Absolutely.
So, I think the TIE Fighter, you know, it's strange as it may seem, because the defender's got the shields, but the TIE Fighter is a little bit steadier at getting out of fights, in my opinion. What I find with the defender is that whenever I need to put power into shields, that means I'm just dying because I'm not moving fast enough anymore, you know? Like, when you take the power out of the engine in the defender, you really feel it. It hurts a lot. But that APS, man, that APS.
We are on board here with the Imperial Raider, as it looks to do some damage of its own to the MC-75, and does eventually go down. It does add morale as well. Again, for anybody a bit unfamiliar with fleet battles, taking that out does give you a good boost to morale, so it's important. There it is. It does go down, and a couple of ship kills will turn the fight around. So the MC-75 takes a decent licking, but the assault cruisers across the way are going to be the next targets now, as Shrapnel Squadron looking to stay in the tournament. They've got to have some kind of attack. I think you've got to chain a couple of cruisers here into maybe a shield generator or two, at the very least in this attack, and then pray your defense can hold.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult to hold this back, I think, at this point. I think that, you know, any competitive game ultimately comes down to resources, you know, and the resources can be the players themselves, the positions that they're in, what they have in the, you know, what actual missiles and bombs they might have on them still, or, you know, whatever it is. And whenever there's an imbalance, you know, that's when teams start to snowball, and I think that we're in that kind of snowball situation right now. It's really so much difficult to make the uphill climb to stay in right now, but great showing, and I just love watching this game. Look at it, look at the lasers. Who else is excited about Rogue Squadron after watching some of this? I am.
This is a decent attack right now. Both cruisers taking some good damage. He did just swap over to Brunus as he's trying to take out this Corvette that's circling the cruisers. That might just flip things back. There it goes. Yeah, so that shut down there. Going to end the attack, and it's going to be a bit of a retreat now from Shrapnel Squadron. Half hull left on the MC-75. That means it's half a ship away from their elimination out of the Operation Ace Open. But, you know, it's been a pretty good fight so far. However, I have a bad feeling with how grouped up Splinter Squadron seem to be right now. It's going to be an all-out attack. 2 defenders coming out for both Brunus and Fenkar now. Not to mention the support going to stay there on Knot, but the 2 interceptors as well. They're out for blood right now.
Yeah, Apogeo doing his absolute best here to try and take out those AI waves, but you know, it's an important role that somebody needs to be doing at all times. But now we see the defender going past. I think that maybe we saw the TIE fighter for the piercing torpedoes to get those shield gens.
Oh,
and now that the shield gens are gone, the defender is how he wanted to finish things off.
There it is, Shrapnel Squadron. My goodness, well played, an Imperial victory here. So, I mean, a pretty back and forth game here, Silent Echo, but ultimately I think this is going to be one of the larger wins that we're going to see. Here's the scoreboard. As you can see, Fenkar actually gets out cap ship damage by Brunus in the end, which is kind of hilarious to me. But just between the 2 of them, I think they just quick math. I think, yeah, they put more capital ship damage than everybody else in the lobby combined.
Well, I think the most important number is actually the Fenkar picked up 44 AI kills in that game, and none of the rest of his team did. They all know their roles, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and Fenkar, I'm pretty sure, only got those AI kills in the bomber. And we saw him in it for how long? You know, a couple of minutes at most total. And that's how swift and efficient that these players were in this game. And I mean, honestly, the quarterfinals in this kind of an event, you know, it's an open tournament. Anybody who's ever played golf knows that this is the case. It can go in any direction at any time. But I wasn't expecting it to be that one-sided. That was some seriously impressive flying from Splinter Squadron.
Well, Splinter Squadron showing us why they would like to be considered one of the favorites. They're going to be one of your top 4 teams today as well. But we are going to take a short break. When we come back, it's time to get into the semifinals. Top 4 action here on the Operation Ace Open. Don't go anywhere.